Enzo Fernández in big trouble. Brutal punishment after returning to England. Enzo Fernández just landed back in England, and nobody warned him about what was waiting for him at Cobham. Right now, behind those training ground gates, Chelsea are putting their own player through something most fans have never seen a club do to one of its own stars. Not a fine, not a public statement, something far quieter, far colder, and honestly, far more brutal. By the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly why. I'm going to give you every detail, every number, every insult that's been thrown behind closed doors at Cobham. I'm going to break down what's really sitting behind Manchester City's nine-figure offer, because it is not what it looks like on the surface. I'm going to show you why an entire country cannot stand the sight of this man anymore. And I'm saving the biggest bombshell for the end, what's actually happening inside that Chelsea dressing room right now. Something the big outlets are only hinting at in one throwaway line, but that inside the club is already an open secret. If you leave before we get there, you lose the one detail that changes this entire story. So stay. This is going to get colder before it gets clearer. Make no mistake, this isn't a transfer saga. It's not a deal. It's a betrayal. Plain and simple. A player looking a club that paid over 100 million euros for him straight in the eye and saying, "I'm done, I'm walking, and I'm walking to your direct rival." He didn't even have the spine to do it out in the open. He did it quietly, behind the club's back, until the story broke in the press and blindsided the very people who made him a star. That is not normal. That is not acceptable. That is a straight-up disrespect, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise. But don't go anywhere, because this story has layers, and if we skip even one, you lose half the venom. Let's go in order. Act 1. The offer that changes everything. Manchester City have put a package worth well over £100 million on Chelsea's desk. Write that number down, because we're coming back to it, and every time we do, it's going to sting a little more if you support Chelsea. Why? Because Chelsea paid a club record fee to sign him from Benfica back in January 2023. Less than 2 years later, he's decided Stamford Bridge is too small for him, that he wants City, that he wants to reunite with a manager who, and here's the twist nobody's saying loud enough, was coaching Chelsea just last season. The pupil is following the teacher straight out the door. Nobody looks at that and doesn't feel used. I certainly don't. But that's not even what turned all of England against him. That's next, and it's far worse. Earlier this summer, in a major international knockout tie, Argentina beat England. That stings if you're English, sure, but it's football, it's competition, you live with it. What you don't live with is what came right after the final whistle. While Argentina's players celebrated on the pitch, Enzo and several teammates unveiled a political banner in front of the cameras, in front of the entire planet, touching one of the rawest, most sensitive wounds in British history. A wound tied to real lives lost, one that stayed open for over 4 decades. And the man holding it up, smiling, celebrating like he'd scored another goal, is the same man who lives in London, earns his living from English football, and built his entire career off English supporters. Let that sit for a second. I'll say it plainly. That is not an innocent gesture. That's not, "Oh, I didn't realize what it meant." He knew exactly where he lived, he knew exactly who paid his wages, and he did it anyway, in front of 60,000 of them. The reaction in England was nuclear. Social media exploded within minutes. Hashtags calling for him out trended for days straight. Former players and club legends lined up to condemn him publicly. Papers across the country ran the same front page. And spare me the "it's his country, it's his right" argument. Of course he's entitled to his opinions. But there's a difference between holding an opinion privately and detonating it in front of a stadium full of the very people who cheer your name every weekend, knowing you have to walk back into an English dressing room within days. That's not courage, that's arrogance. The kind of arrogance that assumes a big enough salary buys you immunity. It doesn't. And what happened next proves it, because this is where the story stops being about a banner and starts being about something far colder. When Enzo landed back in London for pre-season, what greeted him wasn't a welcome from teammates, it was a wall of ice. At the exact same time, in the background, his representatives were already deep in talks with Manchester City, talks that began before the tournament had even finished. Read that again. He was smiling for that banner, already knowing he wasn't coming back as a committed player. He already knew City was waiting with a 9-figure offer ready to flip the market upside down. Then it got worse. Enzo walked into the club's offices and told them, cold, that he was done, that he wanted City, that he wanted his old manager back, The same manager who knows every tactical secret, every locker room fault line, every weakness of the squad he just walked out on. Inside that dressing room, the mood is something close to eerie. No shouting, no confrontation, something quieter and far worse. Silence. A total, frozen silence around him. Nobody making eye contact, nobody sitting near him at lunch. Ask yourself what that actually feels like. Walking into your own workplace, the one place you're supposed to have people who have your back, and watching every single one of them go quiet the moment you enter the room. That's not a punishment handed down by the boardroom. That's a punishment handed down by the people he plays alongside, and there is no lawyer, no agent, no contract clause that fixes that. Money makes this worse. The club spent a record fee on a 21-year-old fresh off a World Cup win and a Young Player Award. He was supposed to be the cornerstone of the next decade. Instead, patchy form, and now a demand to be sold to a direct rival. On paper, it might look like a profit, but stack the wages, the bonuses, the agent fees on top, and the club could be staring at a net loss on the entire saga. A financial disaster wrapped around a player who also just humiliated the country that made him a household name. And even that isn't the detail I promised you. Here it is. When Enzo told the club he wanted out, he didn't do it with an ounce of humility. He did it with total certainty, calling Chelsea a project he'd already outgrown. That, more than the banner, more than the secret talks, is what flipped the switch. As punishment, he's been pulled from first-team training entirely, training separately with the reserves, cut off completely from the senior squad, and his shirt number has already been handed to someone else. In football, that's not a warning. That's an erasure. That's a club telling a player, you don't exist here anymore. That's the truth of it. Enzo Fernández didn't just lose a shirt number. He lost a dressing room, he lost a fan base, and he's on the verge of losing the one thing that actually matters in this business. His name meaning something good. Right now, in England, his name doesn't mean talent anymore. It means betrayal. So tell me, does he deserve a second chance, or has he already burned this bridge for good? Should Chelsea cash in and let him walk, or make him sit and rot as punishment? And that banner, patriotic pride, or the single biggest mistake of his career? I want every opinion. Drop it below.